go to YouTube and type the phrase, "Is college necessary?" You'll get a lot of videos by professional YouTubers explaining why becoming a professional YouTuber instead of going to college was just an awesome choice. The second most common video you'll find are interviews featuring quotes from Elon Musk. Here are some of those video titles. You don't need college. Elon Musk attacks the education system. College is useless. Elon Musk says, "I don't give a damn about your degree." But there's something fishy about these anti-college, anti-degree videos. All these videos with Elon as their mascot reference the same interview. An interview he did for Satellite to Industry Convention back in 2020. During the Q&A portion, a student pointed out that Elon doesn't seem to think college should be necessary for employment. Yet, several of his SpaceX jobs require a bachelor's or master's degree. Here's his whole answer in context. First of all, you don't need college to learn stuff. Everything is available basically for free. You can learn anything you want for free. It's not a question of learning. There is a value that colleges have, which is, can somebody work hard on something, including a bunch of annoying homework assignments, and kind of soldier through and get it done? That's the main value of college. And then also, you probably want to hang around with people your own age for a while instead of going right into the workforce. So I think colleges are basically for fun and proving you can do your chores, but they are not for learning. The last quote about how colleges are for fun, but they're not for learning, that's the part of the interview everyone seems to latch onto. That quote appears in every anti-college video, tweet, and article. But there was a lot leading up to it. During the interview, Musk points out that college is good for proving you can, quote, work hard and kind of shoulder through. Later in the interview, he names a bunch of people who dropped out to become hugely successful without a degree, like Steve Jobs. He tells the crowd SpaceX and Tesla aren't looking to hire someone because they have a degree. Musk says they're looking to hire people who have shown an evidence of exceptional ability. So that's what we're going to do today, right now. The host of the Reengineered You are going to try to demonstrate evidence of exceptional ability without a master's degree, so we can work on rockets alongside actual rocket scientists. And at the end of the show, we'll apply to SpaceX for a job. So how the hell do we demonstrate exceptional ability, Elon? You're listening to The Reengineered You. This is a podcast about self-empowerment and all the myths, lies, and misconceptions we tell ourselves. Then we use science and history to bust those myths and re-engineer a better you. I'm your host, Todd Laments, the extrovert.
And I'm the writer, researcher, and introvert, Joe Anthony, whose job it is to dig through the outer layer of no-duh on the internet and get to the facts.
If you've listened before, you know our show has a bit of a theme. We look at the science and statistics to discover how we can improve ourselves. Then we find ways to apply it. Well, the numbers are pretty clear. Data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics show the higher your education goes, the more money you earn on average, period. If you have a doctoral degree, your median weekly income should be around $1,800. A master's gets you $1,500, a bachelor's around $1,200, and an associate's closer to $850. Just a high school diploma gets you the neighborhood of $600. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But what if we don't have a degree? What if we're uneducated scrubs and we still want to take Elon Musk up on his offer? We have the initiative, the drive, and what Musk calls exceptional ability. So we want to know, can we beat the odds in a system built for the college educated? How likely is it that we could slip through the cracks upward into money? Well, we have 3 myths to get us there. mislike. Myth 1. How likely does having a degree guarantee a future job involving your major? Heck, does having a degree even guarantee employment anymore? If not, what is a degree good for? Myth 2. If you're clever, well-spoken, and street smart, you don't need a degree, right? You'll just talk your way into the job. Except what happens when online resumes are the first hurdle, and your resume looks like a string of paper routes. Myth 3. College is more expensive than ever, and student debt is crushing America. So why hasn't there been a rebellion against college degrees? Surely the price tag on bachelor's degrees has slowed applications. We'll talk about how necessary degrees are for employment, especially for future jobs. But first, I want to ask Joe how much debt he went into for his degree. Okay, I've never asked this. I've known you for a long time. You're a smart guy. Do you have a college degree, Joe?
There is a little box that people check out when they apply for a job. I have to check the box some college, but no degree. So, now because we are sort of an educational podcast, you would think that, especially with the kind of research we do, that I had a degree of some sort. But at the end of the show, when we say that we're not experts in anything and we've got an opinion on everything, we mean that.
Hey, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs marked the some college box too.
Oh,
good
totally.
Company.
Yeah. I think it's super important to have the experience of doing that. But what Elon says, I mean, if you watch people take college courses nowadays, they give you online locations to go for your resources. It's not so much like, I used to think college was you go buy 5 textbooks a term and each textbook is $300 and then that's what you study like in a library. That's not how people are learning nowadays in college. So what Elon Musk says when he says everything's basically for free, he means it, and I believe it.
So how much reading, researching, and writing have you done if you were to compare yourself to a college student who's a journalist, let's say?
I got into this discussion a couple of weeks ago, and I found out that each one of these episodes is basically 2 to 3 college papers because we cover so many studies. And on top of that, in the course of getting into writing contests, I have actually taken BYU classes and, master classes and things. So, generally speaking, I'm gonna go with like a cheaper answer, if you don't mind, a sort of stock answer that every teacher should give, or everybody who is in an education field. You don't stop. Whether you have a degree or not, you should never stop your education. You should just keep pushing into what interests you and what makes you curious and what makes you excited.
Curious, I like that.
If we talk about like Elon Musk's claim, so that's kind of what we're doing the show about, is like we're not going to say that this show demonstrates our exceptional ability, but Todd and I are no slouches. If we're just talking like what a degree looks like, a newly minted college student who has just walked out with his degree, are they going to show enough exceptional ability to get a job at SpaceX? Will they be as sort of motivated as we are? Are they going to show as much, is chutzpah a word? Are they going to show as much grit and determination? And so we want to, that was not a teaser. We are actually going to apply to get jobs at SpaceX by the end of this episode. But we also want to kind of bust the myth that Elon, how did he get through college? And that's actually what I'm going to ask Todd. Because Elon Musk says that he worked his way through college, and I kind of don't really believe that. If you've seen his father is insanely rich. And there was a tweet that went around about how, like, they owned, like, an emerald mine. If you want to know why I did not finish college, it's because I don't own an emerald mine.
Yeah, an apartheid-held emerald mine.
Right. It was an emerald mine in, was it Africa? Like it was South Africa.
South Africa. Well, this is what happened. Anytime, and you and I both do this because we're not rich kids. Anytime someone has super success, we always go, "Oh yeah, but their family got inherited."
Right. Yeah.
We want to cheapen whatever success they've had.
Exactly. Whenever somebody tells me that they got an Ivy League education, I actually do ask that question. That's not a joke. I'm like, okay, well, how much money did you have?
Yeah. If you're a millionaire now, it's because you started with 999,000.
Right.
Well, this all started. This was a rumor, and it started from the Business Insider South Africa. This is a magazine. And it kind of started, it's made all these claims, and all the other news channels jumped on it.
Okay.
They didn't do their due diligence. They didn't check it out. And what it was that his rich father owned, Elon's father had a stake in an emerald deposit.
Okay, so the tweet originally was his father owns an emerald mine, and that his brother and he used to carry emeralds around in like their pockets, or or sell them out of briefcases or something like that.
I could just see him traveling on this jet with emeralds in his pocket, like a crown on.
I'm imagining like a cartoon, like they're falling out of his pockets, exactly. Like he can't carry all these emeralds
because he has so many. No, it was an emerald deposit. And apparently it stopped producing like 30 years prior. So what it was an investment, and by this time it kind of fizzled out. His father and him were estranged for years, for decades. So there wasn't this close bond. He moved to Canada to go to college with only $2,000 to his name.
Okay, well, that's kind of shystery of Business Insider then, to be like, I mean, like a stake in a failed emerald mine, or a stake in a failed emerald deposit. That is a very far cry from they owned an emerald mine and carried emeralds everywhere, and they had emeralds lying on the kitchen table like it was candies in a jar. Like that's very different.
Not only was it just 2,000, Joe, but every part that was even any kind of connection to apartheid, Elon and his brother wanted to have nothing to do with it. They ran the other direction every time.
Okay.
Now, if this article would have done its due diligence, they would have understood that when his dad talked about wealth, he was mostly talking about maintaining his lifestyle. So he didn't have money. He just was trying to keep the stuff he had. He had a lot of businesses, but they all were dwindling and bad investments, and he ended up bankrupt in the early 2000s.
Okay. So, and I've heard sort of in social media that his dad was also an engineer. So like, he was an engineer, but like by the time this interview took place, like all of his assets are just sort of like bleeding, basically. Trying
to keep the shit you have. Elon and Kimball's his brother. They've been financially supporting him and all of his tribe since then.
Oh, holy shit. Okay. That's very different than throwing emeralds around like snowballs.
Yeah. Smart family, though. I'm going to get into that later, how all the siblings are. You can tell a lot by what all your siblings are doing. If they're all successful in their own lane,
right? Yeah.
There's usually some smarts there. So the Business Insider South Africa published these two stories, and they were roughly about 2 weeks apart. It was in 2018, and they were all based on a single interview with Elon. But what really, they knew it wasn't right. All the press started coming back. Elon had to talk to the author directly to get an apology. So they wouldn't take it down because it was such good press for them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But it took them, Joe, 29 months to apologize. They were within weeks to put these two bad articles up that they knew wasn't correct.
I mean, if you're getting clicks and you're making money, then there's almost no incentive except for your reputation to just be like, yeah, we'll print a retraction on page 17.
Exactly. Yeah. There'd be this big headline, but then the retraction is buried in the classifieds.
Right.
When Elon left college, he was $100,000 in debt. And the only way he got through was scholarships in engineering.
Holy hell.
Yeah, he didn't have any family support.
Huh. Okay, well, I can assume to get out of student debt, if you're a American student listening to this, then you know that you'll do anything to get out of student debt. So if you had, a briefcase of emeralds, then he would have used them.
You just can't let this fantasy go, right?
Yeah, I can't.
That'd be
I
nice.
have to stick on it. I hate the wealthy. I don't know if this has ever been clear on this show. I'm kidding. I don't.
Jealous
I just like
of
to
them.
project. Yeah, speaking of projecting insecurities, do you want to talk about is it necessary to have a college degree to get into middle class money?
Yes.
So when this originally showed up on our episode doc, our potential episodes, it was labeled as book smart versus street smart. And we wanted to sort of like figure out, because we hear a lot about Steve Jobs, and we hear a lot about people who are very book smart, who go to college briefly and then leave, and then they're successful. So we started sort of falsely associating, these guys are too smart for college. That's the one I think of a lot.
The one for me, Joe, is I know I have a lot of friends who are in their 40s, mid-40s, midlife, and they have a bachelor's and master's, and they have used this, and they're making great incomes now. They have houses and families. They have all this stuff, but they don't seem to connect that with their degree. Even though to get in their business and to make as much as they do, you need a degree just for starters.
Right.
They make such a big deal out of the debt. But they don't. Then I talked to him about, there's an old country song that said, rich boys go to college and poor boys go to work.
Right.
So I think you pay your own student loans by those backbreaking minimum wage, skillless jobs where you have to work your way up. That's a bill. That's its own kind of student loan, don't you think?
It is. Yeah, I wish we could somehow compare the psychology of the two. Like, what does more psychological damage over time? Student loans and working that off during like a clerical job, or like a paper job, or is it working labor for the rest of your days after high school?
So you could somehow become a supervisor or foreman or just
Right.
somehow, or an estimator, somehow get bumped up the food chain.
Exactly. The best we can do, and that's when we talk about slipping through the cracks upward into money, that is actually kind of what we're talking about, is if you are a very motivated laborer and you come out of high school with a degree but you don't earn anything above that, do you end up making more money than somebody with like a ton of student debt and a doctoral degree? We gave the mean incomes of each. Like we said that a doctoral degree gets you $1,800 a week, master's gets you $1,500, bachelor's $1,200, and then all the way down to high school gets you $600 a week. But we're looking at like exceptions. If you are very motivated and you're very good, what do you get? And that's what we mean when we say street smart. We're talking about Todd's hypothetical mill worker or construction worker that works their way into like foreman or something just by grit and determination. We're going to start with how unlikely or likely it is to get a job with a degree. So we want to start with employment rates, because this is something, okay, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, I was reading an article in The Economist, and they were talking about how unemployment rates among degree holders was high. And at the time, it was now a very small number. Then it was shocking. It was like over 100,000 PhD holders in America were unemployed, and I was like, that can't be true. But this is a stat from statista.com. And they have a link off, so if you want to follow our stats, you can. I encourage everyone to always look at our links and stats. The unemployment rate of recent graduates between 2016 and 2020 is about 7.2%. So, and those are college graduates unemployed in the U.S. Now, for reference, the unemployment rate in general for the U.S., just everybody concerned, is 6%.
So it's higher than that.
Yeah, so the unemployment rate for recent graduates is slightly higher, like 1.2% higher than the average unemployment rate.
I got one little theory on that I just want to drop on you real quick.
Oh, please. I've got theories too.
In the 2008, when there was the recession, there seemed to be a big move away from hollering just college grads right out and looking for people with some work real life experience.
2 years. What I kept seeing over and over again back then and also now, 2 years experience is roughly what they want.
But they didn't used to. They used to just want to hire you fresh.
Right. They wanted those fast young minds that have just studied the field.
But now they just use you as an intern for free, so it works out.
Exactly. Yeah, you're now an intern. There's a hilarious old college humor video where they're like, it's the Zen of college, and it's like the Zen master, and he's like, how do I get 2 years of experience if every place I apply to needs 2 years of experience? And that's the Zen philosophy of it. And that also, you mentioned something too, which is, will you be using your degree? Like when you're working, you said that, your friends are like, they take for granted that the place they're working requires a degree, even if it's not, even if they're paying off student debt or if they're not working in their field. This is a study from the Federal Reserve Bank in New York. They found that 27% of college graduates actually work in a field related to their major. So, like, if you majored in politics, you're, you 2/3 of you in as a political degree are working in something completely unrelated. You're working at a bank, or you're working in data entry, or you're doing something that requires a degree, but not your degree.
So everyone who's in a calculus class is not going to be a scientist.
Right. Yeah. Whatever your major is, you probably won't end up. 27% is not high. Like it's a third. So if you go to school for something, it's more likely that your degree is actually just going to be a metal pinned to your chest at an interview. It's not actually going to mean that you get that job specifically. It's just going to show that, like Elon said, usually we start an episode and we want to debunk what everyone thinks. This actually seems to back up what Elon said, which is, if you have a degree, it just shows you can do the work. It shows that you can put your nose down and work hard when you don't feel like it. And that degree in what it is doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means that you've proven that you can work.
I've noticed that in my banking career because I've worked with about 50-50. Half of the people are in the car business and graduated high school, and the other ones are at least masters.
Right.
And what I noticed was, and I used to be real proud of it, like I work with people who have degrees and I don't have one. But then I realized that the people who have degrees every single time this is going to sound really dumb, Joe, but are better at completing tasks, seeing them all the way through.
Yeah, they have the experience. They have 4 years of experience of completing tasks all the way through.
Turning in papers, taking tests.
Right. So this is a quote from Investopedia. They basically summed up what we're saying very succinctly, and I'm going to quote them. Again, we're going to have a link for these. If you're a recent graduate, your new degree may serve as evidence that you've acquired the skills necessary for an entry-level job in your chosen field. Prospective employers are likely to see you as someone who can get up to speed quickly, requiring little on-the-job training, which costs employers time and money. And Tesla mentioned these. He referred to them. Elon referred to them as completing, tedious tasks, soldiering through. And they also said he wanted to hang out with your peers. And other sources I've looked at refer to these as soft skills. What you're talking about at your work, the college graduates who can do this, working in a team, getting up to speed very quickly, being able to grasp onto what they're supposed to do and actually following through. Those aren't hard skills. Those are soft skills. And college is supposed to teach hard skills. The pull of college is, it says, like whatever you're majoring in, that's what it's going to look like when you are out of it. If you major in, underwater basket weaving, you will be an underwater basket weaver. What it actually is doing for the job market and economically, we've kind of proven. Your degree in underwater basket weaving just proves you can talk well to other basket weavers and you can turn in your basket at the end of the day.
Which is important because every industry has its own language and every corporation has its own language of that.
Right. Now we're going to sort of answer the initial question for this segment. The question was, can Todd and I slip upward through the cracks into money? How likely is it as clever workers and very hard workers, how likely is it that we get a job that pays as well as, say, a doctoral degree or a master's, even though we are not degree holders? This comes from the Association of American Colleges and Universities, and they surveyed executives and hiring managers, and 82% of executives and 75% of hiring managers said, quote, they believe it is very important or absolutely essential for individuals today to complete a college education. And they specifically referred to the soft skills we're talking about. Those soft skills, according to 90% of hiring managers, are communicate effective orally and work effectively in teams. So if you're thinking, I'm street smart, I'm clever, I show what Elon calls exceptional ability, I can get, as high paying a job as, a degree holder, a bachelor's or higher. I would like you to reconsider your position. I don't want to be the podcast that's like, go get a degree. But 82% of executives and 75% of hiring managers mean that you can get lucky. You can go play the field, and you have a 75% chance of being told to hit the streets. You have a 25% chance, if this is accurate, to find the manager who is like Elon Musk, who will say, you don't hold a degree, but my God, you have moxie. Come work for me.
And Joe enrolled in college after he wrote this episode.
I actually did. Thank you, Todd. Thank you for outing me. After I wrote this episode, I had half of an associate's from 15 years ago, back when they used when it was monks wearing cassocks, bent over wooden podiums or lecterns, inkwells writing on parchment. That's how old my credits were.
They look like a pirate map. It's like pre-internet.
Right. I actually applied those parchment written credits and found them and got a transcript and applied to 3 colleges.
But not only that, he formed his own transcript of his contest winning writing, his researching that he's done professionally, and so that all added to him getting college interest.
That's right. Pretty much every college I queried came back and asked me when I'd like to start classes. After writing this episode, if you ever wonder if we believe the things we write, oh, hell yes, we do. Writing these episodes makes us rethink life itself, and then we come back and tell you about it. These episodes aren't for the listener. These are for us. So, I am now going to be finishing my degree because, damn it, I want that extra $200 a week, please. So if I'm starting the college experience again, I want to compare myself to old Emerald Pockets Musk. I know that you just destroyed my vision of him just like dropping emeralds while he's on his way to college, but how did he get through college? Like, what was his process there?
Well, doing the history research on this one was interesting because Elon Musk is a different kind of cat. I feel like he's the kind of celebrity billionaire that either you love or you hate. Would you agree with that?
I'd say that's very accurate.
Yeah, what kind of people? I kind of think of middle-aged men or younger men being really attracted to him because he's so rich and he's so outlandish.
Right. We run into all the time on the show a culture of entrepreneurial worship.
Yes.
Yeah, and the people that are really into entrepreneurs are really into Musk.
Yeah, that's what I think of too. So doing this was interesting. I learned way more than I've ever known about him. He moved to Canada when he was 17. And he did that because he wanted to avoid serving, because in South Africa you had to serve in the military in the late 80s. And that was enforcing apartheid. And he didn't want to have anything to do with that.
Oh, so we've already busted one of our first myths about Musk, that he was, partial owner in an apartheid mine. So like that whole thing, he's out pretty much right 100%. At the start. Okay.
Now he got a Canadian citizenship through his mother because his mother and his father were divorced. He started going to Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. And that's where he fell in love and met his first wife, Justine Wilson. She was an aspiring writer.
Oh, okay.
They get married. They'd have 5 sons, Joe. That's a basketball team right there. 5 sons. Twins and triplets.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
Can you believe that? I've never even heard of that. Have you?
After the first set of twins, then it's like, let's never risk this again.
Wouldn't he be too tired to change the world if you had 5 little boys, bad boys running around?
I would, but if Musk can invent a way to keep them busy, I assume that they were like, they weren't actually kids. They were like laying in pods with like VR sets teaching them everything.
Robots.
Virtual dad taught them.
My friend has twins, and they go to the store when they were toddlers, and they'd run in different directions. And I go, well, what do you do? He goes, you chase your favorite one.
You pick one.
But even with 5 kids, Justin Willis, this Brian Ryder, they divorced in 2008. And then Elon Musk, our hero, he went from Queen's University in Ontario. He transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. I think it's Ivy League, isn't it?
Well, we could look it up. Hold on. Okay, so I'm just going to read. I didn't know this about University of Penn. It was founded in 1740 by Benjamin Franklin. So,
one of my
okay,
heroes.
so they're kind of a big deal. I can't believe I didn't know that. I mean, we paused the episode, and Todd was talking about all the people celebrities he knew from U of Penn, and I did not know about the Ben Franklin thing. So
I didn't know that one either, and I kind of brag about my Ben Franklin knowledge. But that man did a lot in his life, to be fair. But in Philadelphia, it makes sense, right? That's
right.
Kind of his stomping ground.
So, Elon Musk did not go for a small little school. He went for University of Penn.
Yeah, and I'm sure that Ontario school is a good school. So this is the man who doesn't believe in education so far, right?
Right.
So he didn't have any money still. Brilliant man. Young man. So him and a fellow student, to make ends meet, they bought a 10-bedroom fraternity house. And they turned it into, guess what, when they needed money, when they needed cash.
What's that?
It turned into a nightclub. So they'd have wild parties to fund their continuing education.
I'm sure the dean loved that. It's like these geniuses have turned a 10-bedroom frat house into a nightclub.
Sounds like an 80s movie, doesn't it?
I was just thinking, it sounds exactly like, Animal House.
So summing up Elon Musk's Penn degree, he graduated a bachelor's in economics, and then he stayed for a second bachelor's degree in physics. And then after leaving Penn, graduating those 2 degrees, this is Mr. Who Doesn't Believe in College, Joe, and our degree, a science degree, he headed off to another prestigious university, Stanford University in California, to get a PhD in energy physics. But he dropped out of Stanford.
Okay. So, Mr. I Don't Believe in a Degree holds 2 bachelor's degrees and was going after a PhD when he decided to drop out and make all the money.
And all of North America's most prestigious universities.
He doesn't aim low. So after he dropped out, I heard I've heard interviews with him, and I know that everyone in America who is an entrepreneur, they try to make their own story into an underdog story. He talks about how he was rejected by tech companies. He left school to get hired, and nobody would hire him, apparently. I mean, 2 bachelor's degrees is not enough for Musk, apparently, to get hired at a tech company. So how did that parlay into him?
Brilliant guy, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. You got to go back and realize how he got his career started, but a lot of it comes from where it came from. Now, as a young kid, he loved to read. He was an avid reader. His favorite things to read, Joe, was comic books.
I believe it.
And as a young man, he was into philosophy, and he read a lot of science fiction. And guess what? Your favorite, fantasy.
All right.
Love novels.
There's a reason why intelligent nerds like fantasy, sci-fi, and comic books. I'm telling you.
Well, we talk about siblings. He's the oldest of 3 children in a very, very ambitious family. His brother Kimball is currently a venture capitalist and very, very successful. His sister, Tosca Musk, they got great names in that family, is an award-winning producer and director. So they got great stock, those Musks.
Wow. Okay. So they can do basically whatever they want.
Dad's kind of a scoundrel, but the mom and the kiddos are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, Musk had a relentless, world-class work ethic. It's been said that he works 80 to 120 hours a week. He's just tenacious. He's just laser focused on whatever he's doing.
I have heard that about him, like in this research. That's one thing that everything kind of seemed to agree on, which is like a lot of his we're basically sussing through his background to find what might be suspect, but his work ethic is something that is pretty much agreed on.
It seems like rich people are smart people too. So I did some research on this. Elon Musk's IQ is estimated at 155.
Okay.
Which is sky high. And to put that in context for you, Albert Einstein's, even though he never took the test, it's been estimated by a lot of people that to be around 160.
Okay, so that is almost Einstein.
It's right there.
Yeah.
On a good day or bad day, good night of sleep, right?
Right. Like he's a cup of coffee away from Albert Einstein.
It's safe to say Elon Musk had more late nights than Albert Einstein. Probably killed more brain cells with drugs and alcohol. Is that safe to say?
Well, maybe. At least that one time he smoked weed on Joe Rogan's show, yeah.
I don't think that was his first time party.
Okay.
The guy who's having parties, catered parties in college, right?
That's true for a man that opened a nightclub out of a frat house. You would think that he would have done something.
So going back to the beginning of his career, it was 1995. He had $28,000. And his younger brother, Kimball, on his side, they started a company called Zip2. And what it was a software company, a small software company, that would help newspapers develop online city guides. So in 1999, they did it for 4 years. Zip2 was acquired from a search engine for a whopping $340 million. $28,000, 4 years later, $340 million.
Wow. Okay.
It's a pretty big little jump, right?
Yeah, that's a short amount of time for a whole lot of money.
Now, Musk used his money, his buyout money, and he created the X.com. And then he started getting this idea about emailing money. Came known as what we all know, PayPal.
All right. So now we're at the origin story of Musk and his millions, right?
Well, millions. We're going to talk billions here. This always pisses me off about PayPal, and I always bring this up to everybody who'll listen. Why did none of these big banks, the Chases, the Wells Fargos, Keys, why didn't they think of this?
Right.
Right? It's such a basic idea. Western Union's been onto this for a long time.
I'm convinced they thought of it and that somehow it wasn't good for the bank. Like if a bank, if PayPal allows you to basically hold money and then email to other people, that must have been circumventing something the banks wanted you to do that would like something that was going to be like microcharged by your account or something. Because you can wire from bank to bank, but PayPal, I mean, they don't charge nearly as much, I don't think.
Well, Musk was in. I didn't know this. Do you know he's ousted from PayPal? Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, he was ousted right before it was bought. eBay bought it for a $1.5 billion.
Wow. Okay.
So after PayPal kind of slipped out of his hand, Musk started this company. Now, starting an automobile company is no small venture.
It's almost like asking to be ruined. Like in America, post Detroit, that's basically like waving a white flag business wise.
Well, Penske, who's a multi-billionaire out of Detroit, who's a car guy, he went and tried to do the financial end. He has all the money to borrow in the world too. He couldn't do it.
Right.
He just couldn't get the leverage. But Musk helped generate the funding for not just a car company, but an electric car company, which right now is the number one most valuable car company in the world, which is, of course, Tesla.
That is what. Okay, so I want to ask you a hypothetical question. So I thought Musk had made his car company while he still had a multi-million-dollar business or billion-dollar business. He was ousted from PayPal first. So he was basically just like had a bunch of money to put on red, like or to gamble on black. He didn't actually have something that was making him money then.
I'm sure he put some of his money in. But what I think is he showed his value and he got investors to put all the money in. So he doesn't lose his, which is even better.
I don't know. Would you, I mean, if you made $340 million or you know, whatever he did right before he got ousted, wouldn't you just like quietly retire and then work on things that were for fun?
For a lot less.
I'd be polishing a speedboat. Like I wouldn't be risking everything on Tesla.
How could he be? You have to think of how could I be ousted from my own company? That kind of has a Steve Jobs thing to it, right?
Right.
I've made something from this to what it is.
Right.
How dare you?
Have you? So okay. I was reading through comments about Tesla, and and about Musk and about his process. Somebody was like, yeah, but regardless of what he went through, what his trials and tribulations were, how hard he worked, all that stuff, he came from money. He was always going to make it. Like there are people who think that if we're talking street smart versus book smart, I've heard the phrase college is a filter for the haves and have-nots. Or like Aunt Jackie. You remember the Aunt Jackie trial where like the woman from Full House basically bought her daughter's fake way into college, and like her daughter didn't want to go to college, like she was just there Instagramming and like tweeting and stuff. But wealth will get you that education regardless. It'll get you those grades just because you buy your way in. Do you think college is a filter for the socioeconomic class?
I think it was prerequisite for the waters he was swimming in to have that University of Penn double degrees. When you're dealing with venture capitalists, when you're on board of directors, when you're CEOs, they want that background. They don't give that background to someone who worked at McDonald's and worked in the construction business and worked his way up. An education is a lot of times a really good thing.
Okay. So I think that I think you're right. I think that having you can be a go-getter and be street smart and be really good at what you do, but I think that people just won't trust you as much, or they won't give you the benefit of the doubt that a degree gets you.
You still need to fit into that suit.
Right.
They feel more comfortable handing that check over to that Yale graduate.
Right. Do you remember when we did the classism episode and we talked about opportunity hoarding?
Absolutely.
That's something I've thought about a lot with this episode, is that effectively one could look at college as a method of opportunity hoarding for upper classes. That I know we have systems in place to get people degrees if they are smart. Like if you are a valedictorian, hopefully you will be applying to, the best colleges. But there is a lot of research that shows that growing up in a low socioeconomic class basically gears you to not try to go for the highest of abilities. Actually, I'm going to, if you don't mind me talking about The Atlantic again, I know I quote them as a source a lot, but they have great articles. They had an article called "No Point in Applying: Why Poor Students Are Missing at Top Colleges," and this is something that Malcolm Gladwell's podcast, Revisionist History, touched on. They talked about a lot about this, how colleges don't really cater to underclasses. They will try to accept people from lower socioeconomic classes, poor people. They will try to bring in poor people to their colleges, especially because they have special funding and scholarships set aside for them. But they don't make room for them. Like if you are poor, one of the greatest examples I've ever heard of, if you are poor and you are attending an Ivy League, they don't really have systems in place for Christmas break. Like when all the students go home for a month and they all pile into vans, cars, or buses, and they go home and they do their laundry at mom's house and they eat a great big turkey dinner. The poor students who can't afford the road trip, who are barely scraping it and have extra jobs and things, they may have their education set aside money-wise. The college may be paying for it. But they still have to eat, and they still have to manage on an empty campus where there's nothing to do for a month. Like there are things that if you are a poor student, it's baked into you that you are surviving. You are not studying.
Sounds pretty depressing, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Lonely at the top kind of thing.
Right. The article, this article that we're going to link to, they have examples. They talk about how the students from the bottom 50% of income distributions are only about 14% of the undergraduate population in the United States. Undergraduate is, of course, bachelor's and lower. So we're just talking people who are just out to get a basic degree from competitive universities. That's not a lot of poor people. That's if 14% of the poor are getting higher education. That's the great divider. Like in our classism episode, we talked about how education is one of the number one things that tells people that you are trustworthy, that you can make money, that you should be hired. if you don't have a higher education, I mean, like our stats at the beginning of the show really point that out.
Where you work, where you live, who you're introduced to. It's a life changer.
I'm so glad you said where you live, because that is something that came up in this study, is if you are uneducated, you're likely not going to change where you live, and that will determine the rest of your economic status, basically.
All your opportunities who you're surrounded by, right?
Yeah. So let's kind of walk through the college application, you and I, Todd. We are valedictorians, right? Like we'll just
one
pretend.
Of us is.
Yeah.
One of us is a 4.0. One of us is a 2.2. I'll let you guess.
I was not a valedictorian. I did well, but I didn't. Let me put it a different way. I let classes slip that I was uninterested in. So
I stayed up too late playing video games.
That's right. Playing video games, reading comic books. So if we were valedictorians, and this is something that this study, they followed 900 American valedictorians from different schools. Where are we going to apply to? Like if we're in this city and we're valedictorians and we want to get our bachelor's degrees, where do your instincts tell you should apply to?
Washington, University of Oregon Ducks or Oregon State Beavers, right? The local state schools.
Okay, yeah, perfect. That's exactly right. I actually did this. I applied to a school that would be cheap. I went with one that would be reasonable for me to expect that my family could pay for if my student aid didn't work or financial aid didn't work.
You're close to home, so you could eat at home, do laundry at home.
Yep. Exactly. Part of it was being near home. Part of it was, the cost. Now, here's the fun thing. This is upheld by the study that the people they followed, the 900 American valedictorians, they found that almost all of them would choose cheaper schools, and they would choose schools nearby their home. They would choose schools that had lesser programs and programs that did not look good on paper, and schools that would not support their education as much.
Really, 4.0s.
Right. Yeah.
You'd think that they would want to go to the school the furthest away that was just niche into what they wanted to do.
Right, and these Ivy League schools that we're talking about, the really elite ones, like the Musk, Penn State ones, like the ones that are churning out future leaders, they have the support systems in place. They have the scholarships ready. The way this article put it is the critical factor that prevented poorer valedictorians from attending top colleges was simply failing to fill out the application and click submit.
You think that's like a self-esteem thing, or do you think it's a comfort? There's a comfort with being close to home.
I absolutely believe that.
Survival.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you, for us, if we're a college student and we're going off to Penn State, and our father doesn't have to own an emerald mine, but if our father at least has a job. Period. I'm going to end there. If our father has a job, we can come back home if things don't work out well. If you are poor, the idea of leaving the state for school and moving into a college, anything, if you are just moving into an apartment for school, that sounds like you're moving to the moon without a mask or a helmet.
You don't have the chips at that poker table.
Yeah, you don't have the chips, and you don't have an out plan. You don't have a backup. I'm going to quote this directly from the article because these two paragraphs were mind-blowing for me. Quote, without an adequate college counseling from their schools, high achievers turn to their families, but the guidance families are able to provide differs greatly by socioeconomic class. As in many other families where no one has attended colleges, the parents viewed college degrees as equal. Basically, it's a school, you'll get a degree. That is exactly the advice I got from my family. It's a school, it's a degree. Choose the one that is safer and easier for you to get to and that is closer to home.
But I think what's maybe missed here is the support. The kid not knowing what they're going to eat, where they're going to sleep, that they're going to just be okay.
Right, exactly.
It's such a powerful. How are you supposed to compete with these other students when?
Exactly. If I had left the state to go to, say, Penn State instead of somewhere here in Oregon near my family, they may have been able to put me up in a dorm. They may have been able to get me, the college version of food stamps. But the problem is that, I was in graphic design. That's a lot of material. That's paper. That's hundreds of dollars every month in writing and drawing material, drafting equipment. I'm gonna quote the article again. They say, quote, even when poor families suspect college quality might vary, they have difficulty assessing it, and without a clear way to compare institutions based on quality, poor families concentrate on sticker price. Many valedictorians from lower socioeconomic backgrounds took one look at the college's price tag and were immediately scared away from applying. So, support programs are nice, but they don't look at the life support system that is completely and totally necessary. And a lot of poor students, when they get into trouble, they start dipping into their college loans. They pull money from their loan, and that loan is going to be what cripples them in the end.
It's a shame because they're just as smarter than a lot of those kids.
Right.
But their opportunity is going to be limited because of just their circumstances, their socioeconomic class.
I was thinking about, does a college education, does a degree from an older school, so like I joke about how I got credits, a decade and a half ago. Does an old college degree mean as much as experience, like from your experience at work? No.
I think real life work experience is more important.
Okay, why do you say that?
Just the people that I know, they're the high achievers. That was just like a diving board to get started. The one thing I've noticed too about people who are continuous education are they do more study after work, which I think, does that make sense?
It totally makes sense.
So they're willing, and I say, of course they do, but they're willing to take a class every week, do this, improve themselves. So they seem to keep flexing that muscles when other people kind of have the more destination. I'm the boss. I've arrived.
Right.
No one ever helped me. I did it the hard way.
Says the man who met me at an extracurricular activity. But we're both kind of overachievers in that. But yeah, what we said earlier about you continue your education even if you don't have a degree. If you do or don't, you should always be learning. So I believe you're right, and I think that a lot of jobs, as much as we talk degrees in this episode, most sources I could find, and we'll include some of them, say that old college degrees aren't worth as much as 2 years of experience at a similar job or just experience in the software program that you're going to be using.
So you're saying that University of Nevada degree from 1984 is...
Most employers from these, again, we'll include the links. Most employers would rather hire somebody that has recent experience rather than a 20-year degree. A 20 years master's is probably not worth as much as 2 years using the software that your company's using right now. Yeah. Now there's one last question I want to ask you, Todd. College is getting crazy expensive. Student loans are getting so crushing that the Atlantic called millennials the lost generation, referring to people from World War I, because the financial aid crisis and the recession and what we're going through with COVID basically means that millennials don't have a chance financially. They're quote unquote lost financially. They're not going to own houses. They're not going to really own anything. They're not going to have good jobs.
They're buried.
They're buried. Yeah.
Hope their parents leave them something.
Right.
They will.
So a bachelor's degree is about $25,000. That's the average. It gets a lot higher than that depending on which school you go to.
I'm thinking that's a couple of years of community college and then maybe a 2-year.
Right. There are ways around that sticker, and there's ways around getting Elon Musk $100,000 by the time he left college at Penn. He says it like it's like, can you believe this? But I actually do. That
sounds
makes sense
low
to me. Yeah.
Nowadays it'd be $80,000 a year, and then all the other stuff that adds up.
Right.
The $600 books and.
I would think that because of that that insane crazy price tag, that people would stop getting degrees, that they just wouldn't be attending and they wouldn't be chasing it. Do you think that has actually slowed the number of applicants for bachelor's degrees or graduates?
I lived in Phoenix for a while. I lived right next to Arizona State University, and they have 70,000 kids there. So I got to live right there and see all of them. So no, I think they're
No.
flooding more than ever. It's a long answer. Am I right?
You're right. We have, again, a couple sources you can go check out if you're listening. But even though college is the most expensive it's ever been, even though this next generation doesn't have any money, employees can demand a degree because they're used to being able to. I mean, like, they can demand degrees that aren't even related to the job. Like we said at the top of the episode, a third of people with a degree won't be working in their field that they studied for, simply because employees can just say, we're not hiring unless you have a bachelor's.
So it's my two friends at the house having dinner with my wife and I. Both of them have, one has a PhD, one has a master's degree, and they're having this argument with me where you don't need a college degree and the debt of this, and they have to leave. I go, why do you have to leave so early? Well, we're driving our kids to Oregon State tomorrow to school. They don't ever tell you. Does that make sense?
How, if Mr. Musk doesn't believe in school, what's he doing for his kids? Like, you think he's going to send them to a college or like, I'm sure they're like in little private schools wearing little private school uniforms, that kind of thing.
Let me tell you, he has 7 kids.
7. It just keeps growing. Every time you look at me, you're like, did you know he has 19 kids and they're all twins of each other?
7 kids. For some reason, that surprised me. I kind of see him as a single ladies' man. No one's going to, I don't want to pay child support kind of guy, but he's probably got some big child support on that, right?
Okay.
So on his school, for his 5 sons, he started their own school just for them. He opened it in 2014. So for someone who doesn't believe in school, he opened his own school for his 5 sons.
God, of course he did. Okay.
The name of it is Ad Astra. And the school, it only has 8 students. And it's at a conference room at SpaceX, his business. And now has gone from 8 students, started with 8 students, now has 40 students. And it is crazy. It has no grades. The children are aged 7 to 14. And they work in teams. So it's like a team building thing, like the human pyramid thing.
Okay.
Now, they don't have any grades. There's no sports, there's no music, there's no foreign languages in the curriculum. There's no learning. It's about ethics. It's about how to build weather balloons, battle bots. They even have a flamethrowers class.
Good. Oh, wow. Okay. I want that school.
So it's like Chuck E. Cheese on steroids.
Why do you have to tell me? I was really hoping you were just going to be like, all 7 of them quietly sit in a Tesla and look at their laptops until it's time to go home. Like, I was hoping it was going to be boring. That's awesome.
They have their own currency, Joe, to promote entrepreneurship. So they trade. They have team building things. What are the billionaire kids?
I don't like to be an adult and be jealous of children going to a special school, but
that's funny you said that, because that's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I was thinking of these little kids, these little boys who have trust funds. I'm trying to do the math. So you have this many $1 billion. When you get 18, you're going to have $16 billion. 1,000 million, 16 times. I'm jealous of that.
Wow. Okay. I'm convinced. So we need to follow in Musk's footsteps. Are you ready to apply to SpaceX?
Yes, I got my resume here.
Okay. So, Musk, at the very beginning of the show, we talked about his interview where he said he doesn't believe in degrees. We're doing this, by the way. Well, there is a link, and we're going to put it in our links, www.spacex.com/careers. And Todd and I are going to click this, and we are actually going to look at, we're going to apply, because we have exceptional ability, Todd. We're podcasters.
We are.
That gives us exceptional ability, so, we're going to apply to SpaceX. So you and I will quietly fill out our paperwork. We won't air it the entire time we're quietly filling out our paperwork, but we will take notes. So we're going to pause the episode real quick and become astronauts. Okay, Todd and I are back, and we're looking at our application page. Todd, how'd you do? Are you an astronaut yet?
I'm not, and I'd already packed and moved to Texas for the test operations engineer position. It was in McGregor Tech. I already looked at houses, and I got blocked because I don't have a mechanical engineering, aerospace engineer, electrical engineer, or any other engineering degree. They actually said, well, if you give any kind of engineering bachelor's degree, we'll let you in, but sorry, kid.
Oh.
How about you?
I'm an astronaut now. I've got my helmet on. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I went for avionics, and in qualifications, it's bachelor's degree in computer science, electrical engineering, math, or science discipline, or 2+ years of professional experience with object orientation software development. See, that actually, okay, so we are kind of joking that like we actually are on the application pages filling our stuff out. And yes, most of these positions to work hands-on in the systems actually do require engineering degrees. Some of them apparently are doctorates and things like that. I will give them credit. I have found 2 or 3 positions in engineering that would let me do it with an associate's and proof of something else, like some experience in some field. But we are pretty far from his claim or the claim that exceptionability is all you need. I think we would have to actually sit by Elon Musk on a bus or a plane and talk to him and tell him how awesome we are to convince him to give us a job. I don't think we can apply in paper. Like what we said at the start of the episode, the big first hurdle is you have to apply online. And if you don't have that initial degree, that's the hurdle you're going to hit with your shins and just fall flat.
Well, you're being positive, but I did not have an exceptional button anywhere on my application. I didn't even see that. And I have heard rumors are that Elon Musk will ask you a question in an elevator at the company you work at. And if you don't know it, he fires you. I have never heard the rumor that he asks you a question, you answer it correctly, and he promotes you.
Okay. Well, there we go. And you're right. There unfortunately was no button or section to fill out that just says, "Are you exceptional and how so?"
Yes, no, maybe.
Right.
Like Harry Potter, college is a sorting hat. If you have the money to get into college, or if you're willing to take on a lifetime of debt, then you get to learn those soft skills employers are looking for. If you don't have money, then you're probably in for a slow financial crush that had nothing to do with test scores or your intelligence. Degrees, employers can demand them. Colleges can charge whatever they want for them. And we, the public, have to get them. Because if every other applicant except you has a piece of paper showing they can do their homework, guess who's being sent home? We use the term earn a degree. My daughter's earning her mathematics degree at Stanford. My nephew's earning a bachelor's in business. But can we start calling it what it really is? In America, we buy a degree as a cornerstone of our resume. And the flavor of our degree, whether it's from an Ivy League or a community college, a master's or an associate's, that will be the difference between wearing Prada to your job interview or a Walmart tank top. As far as degrees go, statistically, you may not need one at all for the job you apply to. You probably won't use any of the skills involved in your degree. And having a degree doesn't mean you have the ability to back it up. But if you're an American, you better buy one, or you can expect to earn under $600 a week. And if you want to know what that looks like, you can go back and listen to our episode on Amazon warehouses and the new standards for American wages. It's about $15 an hour. You've been listening to The Re-Engineered You. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You mean the world to us. We have a new episode every week.
Connect with us at www.re-engineeredyou.com. That's where we have research links, show notes, and blog articles for each of our episodes. We also appreciate feedback, and we love spirited debates.
We're not experts in anything, but we've got an opinion on everything.